Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Outpost. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, we have Gwen, Yavala, and Tobin and the army they've amassed making their way to the capital. Obviously, the remaining two of the three are like, oh, take care of them, but already most of the Prime Order's guards have already fallen under their control. One of the three bounces while the other one gets arrested, which that immediately made me go, what about the other? Because I was like, the last time we saw it, because obviously the other member of the three died last season. I can't remember her name. The lady that mind controlled Garrett. Wasn't her name Sonia, something of that nature. She had it last, but she died. But she made sure to pass it off to someone else so they could get it back to the capital. Obviously, we find out the other side of that. We'll get to that soon enough. But at the beginning of the episode, that made me wonder. I was like, oh, whatever happened to that? Did they ever get that third one back? Because let's not forget, they have Kinja. Their power comes from them having Kinja. So they're the three that can't. Well, these two in particular are the ones that can't be infected. So it's like that's why they need to be locked up. I love that one of them just literally pieced out like that, leaving the other one high and dry, because it's like, well, it's self-preservation. It's, every one for themselves, I guess. But obviously, like, they don't have complete control of the capital. A lot of people do stay hidden, but one by one, they are, with enough people infected, all you have to do is search them out and infect them. So there's only so much hiding that can be done. So at the same time, back at the Outpost, we had the whole situation with Janzo and Ren trying to come up with a solution, but they figured out kind of like, okay, where the Kinj normally is, but when it splits, like where it moves to in the body. But once again, they still haven't found a way to surgically remove it without killing the host. They've also not found, they're trying out poisons to see if there's anything they could use to poison the Kinj without killing the host, but that will take a lot of time, and it's like, well, they don't have a lot of time because Gwen, out of anyone, is running low on time, her being the first person that was infected. So when it's all said and done, though, it comes, we have that like moment between Garrett and I love the whole Garrett and Zed thing where it's kind of like, all right, why do you hate me? He's like, I don't hate you, Gary. He's like, oh, if we were to ask who had reason to hate, it's like, technically it'd be me with everything that's going down, but it's like, now you, why do you hate me? Is it because I got with Talon? And it's like, he's like, I care about, what happens to Talon. And for whatever reason, I don't understand it, she cares about you. So he's like, for me, that's enough of a reason to have your back. And it's like, well, glad to see we were able to handle this maturity. He's like, Zed's like, yeah, now punch yourself in the face, and makes Garrett punch himself in the face. And Talon's like, what's going on? He's like, nothing, just forget about it. But, they kind of throw out the solution I thought about before, like, well, if I figured since you can't just straight up kill her, you probably have to follow zombie rules where it's like, hey, cut off her head. Maybe if you could disconnect the brain from the body, then maybe, but to be fair, this thing kind of lives in her brain, so maybe she keep living. So it turns into they're saying like, well, we just keep cutting and dicing until like there's nothing left, essentially. So they're kind of trying to be like, yeah, because, maybe it's kind of a bit of a Deadpool thing where it's like, no matter what happens, I'm going to kind of come back from this. So maybe that's the type of situation. I don't know. We don't know the full extent. We've only seen a partial extent of like what the regeneration is like for her. Maybe cutting off her head is enough. Maybe it's not. Maybe you need to kind of go above and beyond. Maybe not just disconnecting. You have to pretty much maybe obliterate her skull. Their plan is to just go, probably because of the nature of the show. It's like, it's just kind of messed up. It's like, basically, let's burn her with like, whatever it is that Janzo had concocted, being like, yeah, basically just destroy every fiber of her. Like, you need to completely and utterly destroy her body might be the only means. And it's like, well, that'll free everyone, right? It's like, maybe because of the whole hive mind connection, you kill the queen, maybe the rest will die, or maybe they'll still keep going. So whether this is a permanent solution or not, that also begs to be seen. But obviously Janzo's not too happy about this, because he's like, I knew what you guys are discussing. There's only one thing you three warriors would be gathered talking like this. And it's like, I had the right to tell Ren, but I'm not going to, because it's like the harsh reality of like her mom might have to die. Granted, when it's all said and done, though, Ren's like, I know you guys are lying to me. Like, you're going to go kill my mom, and it's like, well, we don't have any other choices. Like, I hate her too, but this is still my mom we're talking about, because it's like, if her mom goes, she's like, I don't have anyone else. And Janzo, which is kind of sweet, being like, regardless, you'll still have me. Which obviously Janzo knows a thing or two about, losing your mom. His mom wasn't always the best person, but she was a little bit more redeemable than, Yavalo, who's trying to completely take control of people. Which I think is saying a lot, considering the fact is that Eleanor did a lot of like shady stuff, not for everyone's best interest, so like it is a little, it's not like, not like Eleanor was the best person anyway, but she had her redeeming qualities. But on the road to the capital, Zed, Talon, and Garrett run into some Prime Order soldiers who are basically abandoning their boats because it's like, yeah, there's infected out here, and they're just straight up killing them because in their mind it's like, this is the best way. Like, it's like, he's like, we've seen enough that I've got an inkling for it, because it's like, if I believed you guys were infected, I would kill you guys right now. So that's the only reason why you're still alive. So they're planning on heading towards the Outpost because they heard that's where like a lot of refugees are going, which obviously it's a question of like, I hope Janzo doesn't take them in, because Janzo's kind of left in charge, which I love that whole situation of him trying to like, be like, this is the first time anyone's left me with any responsibility. And Ren is like, yeah, you say that about you who had to deal with, curing plaguelings, running the only bar in this town. There was another thing, and he was like, yeah, I guess that does kind of technically, count that, like I have been placed with a lot of responsibility before now. But I love Ren trying to make him feel better. It's like, don't worry, if you screw up, I'll be here to take over. So it's kind of like, all you have to do is be Janzo, like, but obviously for him, it's like, there's so many other responsibilities as a leader. You have Yavala finding a sneaky way to get at least one of her infected inside by taking control of the rat and making the rat make it appear like, oh, it's still clawing after her when it's not. This way, she has at least not just the rats, which are caged agents. She has a person on the inside to kind of act as her eyes and ears. So I guess like maybe slowly but surely, like I'm sure she's probably going to affect other people while she's there, but it's mainly like to be her more eyes and ears, where she has a little more free reign of the Outpost, while potentially also increasing the numbers, spreading the infection from the inside. So there's that. It's also interesting that shows that they don't know this now, but now this also puts them in a position where their infection detection device, the rats, doesn't work anymore. So, because obviously, if need be, Yavala can sway that to, once again, they don't know this yet. But obviously, it comes down to those Prime Order soldiers showing up, and it's like, well, for one, at first, I love the whole, like, cutting of rations. I forgot, because, like, Janzo made some wisecrack about, like, oh, yeah, like, something's empty, like, Mutt's head. And Mutt's like, my head's not empty. He's like, is it? But obviously, like, cutting back on his rations, because he was like, oh yeah, big people like me, we should get more food. And he's like, you're exactly right. And Janzo snatches the food from him, like, you guys have got enough, big guys like you have enough food in your stomach that you could go longer without food. And he was like, no, Janzo, I didn't want to suggest you take my food. But when it's all said and done, the soldiers come in. Obviously, them being Prime Order soldiers, no surprise they turn out to be huge dicks. I mean, considering the fact is, I figured it was going to turn into a complicated thing because there's at least one infected person, and I figured that storyline would kind of tie into them being here, and maybe they'd be all about killing people. And the dude also has a sense of like who's infected and who isn't. Which I'm wondering, is there more to that? We'll get to that in a second, but it's like kind of going in there, starting shit. Janzo's kind of like, I'm the one in charge, you have to leave. And obviously he's not intimidated. The leader of the group is like not intimidated at all by Janzo. And obviously finding out about the food ration and everything, I was like, don't worry, we'll guard the food. Obviously everyone kind of gathers up, they got all the Black Blood soldiers gathered up to be like, no, we're going to fight you, get out of here, until it's revealed that the leader has a Kinj. And at first you're like, oh, is he the one of the three that escaped? But it's like, no. Apparently, like the messenger that got the Kinj at the end of last season, at some point he found that kid and killed that kid and took the Kinj because the kid didn't have control over it yet. Now he does, bringing both the Lakiri, the Black Bloods, and pretty much everyone to their knees because he's sending out pain. And because at first I was like, how's he doing that? Like, shouldn't only black. But I was like, right. The three are humans, and they manage to control the not Lakiri, but the Kinjis. And I'm wondering, is it because they've had longer time of it? Because it seems like Home Dude can use it, but it seems like it takes its toll on. It didn't seem like he had complete control over it. Because I feel like probably like a black blood would have an easier time than a human would. I think that's kind of what that's. But once again, maybe if you become acclimated to it enough, and maybe if you ration out its power. Once again, it comes down to whether you can control it. And he's able to control it, but probably like a black blood or one of the other three, like given enough time, it was able to control it a lot more efficiently. Maybe, maybe not. It just seemed like it was taking its toll on because his eyes would roll back, and it seemed like it probably isn't. I mean, it's more a black blood thing anyway, that's also why I feel like it's so interesting. I mean, it kind of makes sense with like how the Kinj splits and it kind of drains the life force from the person. That's why I figured it might have. That's why I initially thought like maybe it has an adverse effect on humans in particular, but obviously black bloods are infected as well. So, but I wonder, will it? I mean, they haven't really broke that down whether or not there is going to be a difference between like how it has affected humans and black bloods. Maybe there's something there because obviously like there's a whole conversation between Ren and Janzo suggesting black bloods and humans aren't that far apart biology wise. So maybe that's why that's the way of being like, yeah, it's going to affect black bloods just the way it does humans. But regardless, basically they're forced to submit, and obviously if you don't submit, we'll kill you. And it's like, oh, we'll also do what the Prime Order was initially going to do. So all black bloods were locking them up and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, so you're power tripping. Once again, it's the Prime Order, no surprise. Like, especially with one of you having a Kinj of your own, he's like, I'm in charge. The strong get fed, the weak, the sick, women and children don't get fed. So unless you prove yourself to be strong, you're not getting food. Janzo had asked Ren for the rings, and I was like, what is he going to do with those? And so he's using the Lakiri as a means of hunting and getting food, kind of like an outside source, so he can keep people that aren't going to get fed by those soldiers, actually feeding them. And obviously, you have Yavala trying to take advantage of that situation by having her insider asking, where'd you get this food from? Which is like, well, I guess maybe she figures it'd be another means of kind of control, where it's like maybe if she can control the supply of food, figure out where they getting it, that maybe she can interject and control it and kind of be able to sway people in the outpost and even kind of more easily take control of them. Maybe that's what that is. I don't know. I'm curious to see kind of where things kind of go on that front, but it's like them kind of working a little underground situation. Because I thought it was interesting, because just before this episode started, I was like, seeing those Prime Order soldiers, I was like, man, it's kind of crazy to think that the Prime Order isn't the main antagonist right now. Obviously, it's all shifted towards Yavala, and it's like, oh, they're so backgroundish, but now it's like they're there, they're not the threat that they were before, but they're still kind of a threat nonetheless. So once again, there's also that, like I said, that member of the three who's still like out there, like what that's all about. We'll see what ends up being accomplished from that, because it's like, well, not much he can do on his own when his entire army and soldiers and everything are under someone else's control. So there's that. There's some situation with obviously it's something Zed talks to Talon about a lot. Like, I don't get what you see, and Garrett. Garrett has his like rules that he follows, and that basically he never basically talking about how he does, he has his code that he follows, and then he never kind of breaks away from that. And obviously it's like Zed being like, oh, like sounds so boring to me and stuff like that. It's like, even the fact is that Garrett would die for her without hesitation, and obviously he runs into those infected people, which luckily he walks away from that and not infected. But I love Zed being like, wait, you also didn't bring the water? It's like, what? It's like, what? He's like, you really, it's like, wait, I'm telling you I was about to be infected, but you're complaining because I didn't bring the water back. And I love that they had that like back and forth. I think that's a really nice element of it. It kind of reminds me, it made me think of like, it's like when Janzo was talking to the Lakiri, he was like, ex-lover Talon, current lover of Ren. I love that. I'm sure Talon would probably smack you for referring to her as your ex-lover. Well, I guess it's more so in the sense of like being in love, not necessarily there being like something between them like that, because he did love Talon at one point in time. But saying ex-lover like that makes it seem like there was a mutual love situation and an intimacy situation. But regardless, God, what was the argument that they had? That it was kind of like a back and forth between both of them, like I forgot what it was. Garrett said something, and then Zed said something else, and then she had to be like, both of you shut up. It's just, I love that. Nevertheless, they were able to sneak in. They were able to rescue some people who is like, hey, these kids, it's like, hey, make sure you get out of here. Don't interact with anyone. Make your way to the outpost. You're letting people in. So, and they try to find Yavala, but sadly, the person they find isn't Yavala, but they're being controlled by Yavala. And it's like, well, her real body's not there. So it's like, well, they've got to try and track her down. And so there's the whole situation of them fighting all. I love it. I don't know whether they meant to do this or not, but there is a point in time where like they're fighting, and you see like at one point Garrett's kind of standing back, and like Talon and Zed are handling. You see him kind of kneel over a little bit, almost like I'm gonna take a second or two to myself. All right, you need my help, Talon. All right, it just, I thought that was such an interesting moment. I don't know. I'd assume that was 100% on purpose, but I also love them disguising themselves as like, I was figuring that'd probably be the easiest way, just to kind of disguise yourself as Prime Order soldiers. And I love the whole thing of like, you go get those traitors, sir. We'll stay here and we'll stand around here and guard. And then like Garrett was like, stand around here and guard, and she's like, I don't know, I'm not a soldier. I wasn't in the military. I didn't know what to say. Because the whole thing is, you had Zed wanting to leave because I was like, let's leave and find Yavala. She can't be too far away, but it's like, we can't leave Tobin and Gwen. Obviously, the only thing, I'm sure, for Garrett, it's like, we can leave Tobin, but we can't leave Gwen. Showing where his priorities too is like, it's like, I care more for Gwen than I do Tobin, but, regardless. So obviously, it's like, I'm outnumbered by crazy people, so Zed's kind of getting dragged along in all of this. But obviously they found Gwen, and she looks bad. Like, even like her hair doesn't have that like golden shine like it does. It looks pale. She looks pale, and she does not look good. So it's like, she is dying. So it's like, what are you going to do about that? It's going to be interesting to see, as things heat up in the outpost, so do things heat up in the capital, and, what that necessarily looks like. We'll have to wait to see but the next episode. I am curious. I would assume, I don't know what this episode situation is going to be like, because this episode caught me off guard coming out on a Sunday. I did not realize that till the last minute. It's Monday night at the time of recording this. I didn't find this out until like I was uploading all the reviews today. So we'll see. I'll have to check and see if there's going to be an episode Thursday. It might not be one Thursday. It might be one next Thursday. Not unless they've moved it to Sundays for now, but I get the feeling like it's probably just because like the whole send off to Supernatural. I think that's the only reason why. That's why I figured there wasn't going to be an episode Thursday, but I didn't realize they were going to move it to Sunday. So we'll see what the situation is. Regardless, I'm excited to see where the next episode takes us, regardless of what day it comes on. But really, that's all I want to talk about. I'm spacing out a little bit. I'm sorry. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.